Greetings and welcome to another edition of The Great Goddess. Praise be to Goddess. Praise be to Goddess. Well, here it is, another Wednesday, and today I have for you a very important subject. Foods you think that are vegan but aren't. Now, don't get defensive. This is a very salient question, and it deserves to be asked. What foods are supposedly vegan but really aren't? And I'm about to discuss that with you today. There's a few foods on my list of foods that aren't vegan and that are supposedly vegan but aren't. So, first off, coconuts. Why are coconuts not vegan? Well, it's because they use monkeys to harvest coconuts. Now, not all companies do this. Bear in mind, not all companies do this, but enough of them do it, like Thai Kitchen does it, that it's a real concern for real vegans. And what do they do with these monkeys? Well, usually the way the monkeys are harvested is when they're little, when they're small and they're with their mothers. They shoot the mothers to get the wild-born monkeys. And then they train them, they keep them on leashes, and they hang them upside down by their legs to make their legs stronger. And then they make them climb trees all day, every day, harvesting coconuts all day, every day, until some of them drop from exhaustion. And they do this their whole lives. They're just harvesting coconuts all the time. And this is a travesty of justice, and it needs to be stopped. And any humane animal lover would not approve of this and would not want to be eating coconuts or coconut-related products. Now, there's a few companies that claim to not use coconuts harvested by monkeys. Silk is one of them. So Delicious is another one. But I wrote to So Delicious. I actually wrote to So Delicious, and they said they gave me a form letter. They sent me a form letter, and they said, we care about animals, people, and the planet. And we're so kind. That's our philosophy, is so kind philosophy. And we are always mindful of animals, people, and the planet. But that's all they said. They didn't say anything else. And So Delicious, I have my doubts about. So if you want to write to So Delicious and pursue it with them and take it up with them and see if you can get them to spill the beans on whether they use monkeys to harvest coconuts, then go ahead and be my guest. I also asked them if their chocolate was fair trade, and I'll get to that in a moment. But for now, the monkeys are tortured souls. They're not allowed to socialize. They're not allowed to groom each other. They have to sit on their perches their whole lives with a chain around their necks and climbing trees for harvesting coconuts. And this is really happening. Real coconuts are being harvested. Now, I wrote to Daya. I know you may have heard of Daya. They're a dairy substitute, and they make cheeses with coconuts in it. Well, and also cream cheese with coconuts. I wrote to Daya, and they wrote me back and said that their coconuts are harvested in the Philippines and that they definitely do not use monkeys to harvest their coconuts. So that's good to know. We can still have Daya cheese, Daya melted stuff. But other brands, not so much. I wrote to Dream, that makes Almond Dream and Coconut Dream, and asked them if their chocolate was fair trade and if they used monkeys to harvest coconuts. And they sent me to a to a PDF file that didn't say anything about monkeys harvesting coconuts or about fair trade chocolate or fair trade products. So that is out. So Delicious and Almond and Coconut Dream do not care. They do not care about animals, people, and the planet. They could not care less, and they've proven it with their responses to my letter. Now, granted, you can give these companies a second chance. You can write to them yourself and see if you can pursue it with them and get a straight answer from them. But so far, I've gotten no answer at all. Now, another food that is supposedly vegan but isn't is cashews. Why cashews? Well, for the simple reason that vegans try to eliminate suffering for everyone, not just animals, but people too. Vegans care about people too, and cashews are sometimes called blood cashews because when they're harvested, the people who open the nuts, the people who crack open the nuts are severely scalded by the chemicals that come out of the nut. And it's not chemicals anyone put in the nut. They're naturally occurring chemicals that scald their hands and burn them very severely. And sometimes they get burns on their faces, sometimes they get burns on their hands. And they have no compensation, no workers' comp, no medical care, and are paid very low wages. They aren't paid proper compensation. Now, there are some companies that sell cashews that do not do this, that fairly compensate the workers, like Equal Exchange. From Equal Exchange, you can buy, over the internet, you can buy from Equal Exchange raw cashews that are fair trade, that people were compensated fairly for the harvesting of the nuts. Because these people are getting severe scalds, they might as well be fairly compensated, right? So cashews, something to consider, not necessarily fair trade, not necessarily good for the workers, and so you might not want to eat cashews anymore, but it's up to you. I know a lot of you like your cashew cream, and a lot of you like your cashew cheese, but it's not worth it to scald the workers so severely. Now, you may still want to buy cashews, and that's okay, because when you buy cashews, you help these disadvantaged workers make a living. So you might, for that reason, still want to buy cashews. But if you buy cashews, be sure to buy them fair trade so the workers are fairly compensated. And that brings us to the subject of chocolate, which is one of the worst offenders of all because they use child slave labor to make chocolate. And while it doesn't harm any animals, it's definitely not vegan. It's definitely not vegan because vegans care about everyone, including children. And children in African countries are the ones that are being made into slaves, modern day slaves, to harvest for Hershey's, for Mars, for Nestle, for Cadbury, you name it. All of these chocolates are being harvested by children slaves. How do we avoid this and still enjoy chocolate? How can we enjoy chocolate knowing that children slaves are being used to harvest the chocolate? Well, don't support chocolate companies that use children slaves that haven't guaranteed that they've eliminated child slave labor or slave labor in general on chocolate plantations in Côte d'Ivoire. Côte d'Ivoire is one of the countries that uses the child slaves. Ghana, not so much. Some of the slaves come from Ghana. So support fair trade chocolate, because fair trade chocolate and organic chocolate are not made with slave labor. In fact, there's not a lot of fair trade companies you can trust anymore, because a lot of these supposedly fair trade companies are using part of their chocolate as fair trade. Like they can get away with using 25% of their chocolate as fair trade, and Fair Trade USA will certify them as being fair trade when in fact they're using 75% of their chocolate is not fair trade and is coming from Cote d'Ivoire. So what you want to do is buy from Equal Exchange or Theo's. Theo's chocolate and Equal Exchange are readily available at Whole Foods Market, and just by choosing Equal Exchange or Theo's, you're supporting fair trade. Another company that I contacted about the coconuts and the chocolate was Alter Eco. And Alter Eco, they were very friendly, and they told me they do not use monkeys as slave labor, and they're mindful of the workers. So you can enjoy Alter Eco chocolates and coconut clusters without guilt. So Alter Eco, Theo's, and Equal Exchange are the brands you can trust to make your chocolate and other delicacies that you may enjoy having. That brings us to the touchy subject of palm oil. And palm oil is a very touchy subject because it's bad for workers and the environment and animals. That's a triple whammy, okay? They're destroying the rainforests, which is bad for the environment. They're using slave labor from India in places like Malaysia and Indonesia to harvest their palm oil. And the third thing is that the orangutan and the Sumatran tiger are severely endangered, and the palm oil industry is contributing to this. Sorry, folks, your earth balance is not going to cut it. They say that they're sustainable, and they claim to be sustainable, and they claim that the workers are not harmed. But I can tell you right now, I wrote to Earth Balance, and I was not satisfied with the answer they gave me. They said, yes, we're in Malaysia, and we don't harm the orangutan. We put our farms where the orangutan doesn't live, but they didn't mention the Sumatran tiger, which I asked them specifically about, and they didn't mention the workers. So we don't know. Earth balance is an unknown, and they're probably harming the environment by cutting down rainforests for their palm oil. So that's out. Earth balance, nix. Another company that uses palm oil is Follow Your Heart. Follow Your Heart cheeses, the shreds, are made with palm oil, and their sliced cheeses are made with coconut oil. Now, I wrote them just today, and I haven't received an answer back about the coconut oil, so I'll keep you briefed on that. I'll keep you up to date. But that they do not use palm oil from Malaysia or Indonesia. So the Sumatran tiger and the orangutan are safe, but they do use palm oil from the Amazon rainforest. So the jaguar and the gibbon are endangered there. And so there's always a problem. There's always a problem with, but they claim, Follow Your Heart claims that they do not clear primary forest rainforest to plant their palm farms. So you can usually be assured that follow your heart shreds are safe to eat. Now I don't know about their sliced cheeses because I don't know if they use monkeys to harvest coconuts or not, but you can have their shreds. The shreds are safe. And that is it for the main subject, but now I'm going to get to another subject right away. Now this subject is a very touchy one with vegans, and I want to assure you that I'm on your side and that I in no way am trying to blame you or encroach upon you or say that you shouldn't be vegans or why bother. I'm not saying that, so just hear me out and take this question seriously. What about the honeybees? Because honeybees are factory farmed nowadays, and there's two crops in particular that the honeybees fertilize. One is almonds, and the other one is avocados from California. And the honeybees are shipped they're called migratory bees, and they're not migrants. They're not going anywhere. They are shipped by the back of a truck to California to fertilize the almonds and the avocados. So they're on the back of a truck for days, and they're trapped in their hives where they aren't able to defecate because they never defecate inside the hive. They have an aversion to defecating inside the hive. So they have to hold it for days. Just imagine not being able to go pee or poo for days. And that's what happens to these honeybees. And they say that this migratory bees phenomena is responsible for colony collapse disorder. You may have heard of this. Honeybees are now in trouble because there's been colony collapses where all the bees fly away and leave the hive, and the hive dies and all the bees die. And they don't know what causes it, but they think one of the things is these migratory bees shipping them across the country does this to them. Now, we have no proof. It could be pesticides, because pesticides are another main issue with honeybees. But it could be that the almonds. Now, they increase in number when they fertilize the almonds. They double in number because they're being fed well by the almond pollen. And that might be a good thing. We might think, well, that's good. The honeybees are thriving because they're being fed all of this pollen. But the main issue is that half of them never make it back to the hive, because then they pack up the hive when the season is over and ship them right back home to the northern states. And the bees that are left behind never make it back to the hive. They're left hiveless, and they just die without the hive. So it's cruel, it's inhumane, and it can cause colony collapse disorder. Now, if you love bees, there's a problem with your almonds, and there's a problem with your avocados. Now, it's up to you whether you still choose to eat them. You might throw up your hands and say, there's nothing I can do about this. I'm still going to eat almonds and avocados, and that's okay. That's your choice. Just making you aware of the issue. There's hundreds of crops that are pollinated by these migratory bees. They are taken all across the country to increase yields. They only increase yields by about 14%, except in the case of the almonds and the avocados, which really rely on the honeybees. But these other crops are mainly pollinated by native pollinators, so you can rest assured that if you eat those crops, that most of them were pollinated by native pollinators. You can't guarantee that they weren't pollinated by honeybees. They might have been, but the odds are they weren't. So enjoy your foods, but remember that not everything is vegan, and we should be aware of the issues involved and keep in mind that we really count on those little bees for all of our food. We would starve to death if it weren't for the bees. And one thing you can do for bees that's a major thing, they say buy organic, locally grown honey. No, you don't want to do that because that contributes to the decline of native bees. But if you want to do something for the bees, grow a garden for the bees without pesticides and buy organic. Those are the two main things you can do for bees. Plant native flowers, native, like a prairie garden, and without pesticides, and don't use pesticides on your lawns, and buy organic. Those are the things you can do for the bees. I'm Sarah Jane Alphawolf signing off. Have a terrific week, and next week I'll update you on all of the companies that I contacted about the coconuts and the chocolate.